This is non-random miracles. So a few thoughts. I started off my journal session today all about the idea of logic. Logic is a really, really cool concept. When I say logic, you probably have your own, version of what that means. But let me just share a little bit of this. This will be an entire rise up. I'm actually writing an article on logic for Brains Magazine. So logic is our most powerful ally. Logic is our most powerful ally in understanding and interfacing with reality. What would you do without logic? You'd be a mess. Logic is the closest thing that we have to a force that holds the entire universe together. It is based on a mathematical framework that's human created, but it's based on a mathematical framework that has reasoning in it, right? So a lot of these mathematical formulas and breakthroughs give us the foundation for logic, and it underpins anything and everything. Logic underpins everything and anything. However, little twist. However, logic can be manipulated by your program via your programmers. You can be persuaded into thinking that something is logical, but then unconsciously you don't know that somebody else told you it was logical. So you have to be aware of that, right? So today I welcome you to flip a switch from being that of identifying yourself with your thoughts and simply become an observer of them. Step away from all of this stuff. Just recognize it's going on, but step away from it. Remove yourself from the field of attachments today. Remove yourself from the field of attachments today and what's known as your default mode network. That's something. Before we even get started, identify what your default mode network is. What I'm saying is your regularly scheduled program. Identify it. Just learn how to just identify that you're doing what you always do. And then flip a switch today and move into what we call a task positive network rather than default. What's interesting about default is it doesn't always support what we want. So I want you to just look to actively and consciously flip a switch from default mode into task positive network, meaning things that support, where you become task supportive, clear-headed and focused. Follow reasoning over impulse. Today, follow reasoning over impulse. Imagine a world where we all followed logic. So let's get into our rise up today. This is called non-random miracles. So have you ever noticed that your brain is often performing improbable feats in figuring things out or knowing something is going to happen before it happens? Have you ever noticed that? Have you ever noticed that you think of someone and the phone rings and it's that someone, or think about something? Now, when it happens, sometimes you question, because sometimes it happens and you say, did I just predict that? Right. And it seems so irrational that you'll probably just bypass it. But you kind of know, in this space where nobody's listening, have you ever noticed that you have the capacity to do that? There's a reason for that. And it's fun to play with that. So your brain is often doing these improbable feats in figuring things out or knowing something will occur before it does. The brain, like other organs, owes this non-random organization and performance to something called natural selection. This is something that we're all subject to. This is super cool and potentially scary. Natural selection, as a reminder, refers to our propensity to adapt through evolution in order to survive. This is where we've coined the phrase, and we know it. It's called, when we say only the strong survive, and is apparent everywhere we look, right? More apparent than ever through social media. And social media displays our feeble efforts, and we're all subject to this, our feeble efforts to basically boast our value, and not natural selection, and kind of like grab these natural selection points by displaying our polished illusory self, right? So we always look at social media. You are seeing people make an attempt, because of natural selection, they're not unaware of it, to just expose their polished illusory selves. So cool. It goes beyond survival as well, where we know Only the strong will thrive as well. So it's not just about surviving, but we're in a world where people actually want to thrive, and rightfully so. Important here to distinguish the definition of what I mean when I say strong. It refers to one's ability to lead and survive during hard times, yet places a big focus on one's ability to reproduce. When you're talking about natural selection and all of these people trying to expose their polished states, this comes from a place of our trying to boast our ability to reproduce. If you think about it, that's the ultimate form of acquiring points in natural selection. That's what's going on out there. People don't even know it. When somebody shows you the washboard stomach, or how much money they have and all that stuff, they're just trying to say, hey, I can have a lot of babies. I think that's funny. Reproduce, which is the lifeblood of survival over the long haul. We see in stereo. This is something that we naturally do. We see in stereo to better understand and react. We get repulsed. This is really cool. Automatic. We get repulsed by certain foods or smells that may carry disease. That's why when you see rotten food or something like that, you just naturally know how to get away from that. That is natural selection. And this is your brain is programmed for this. So the idea here is to just recognize this is going on automatically. You probably haven't thought of it in a while. So we're attracted to certain partners, which is connected to mating once again, whether you like it or not, right? When you have that, what we call chemistry, that's connected to reproduction and mating, all happening. So through natural selection, your brain has adopted some miraculous capabilities to stay in the game. That's where all these miracles happen from. It's like intuition and things like that. That's just on autopilot. So some in favor, these things that are happening, some in favor of you and your personal goals, others not. So if you have an intuition to go for it in a relationship or a business decision and it works out, well, then you would say that that's in favor. However, if you steer clear, because sometimes we get it wrong, if you steer clear of risk, which is also a byproduct of natural selection. If you steer clear of risk to stay safe and away from harm, but then miss a great opportunity, which you find out later, that's not in your favor. So know this, we all have superpowers. This is what's important, because sometimes we get into a contemplative phase where we don't understand that we all have certain superpowers. You were not born by mistake, but I think a lot of people go their lives without identifying what they are. So we all have superpowers that guide us through this process. We need only tap into them. And that is how you, kind of like the Hunger Games, they all had different powers, Katniss Everdeen and all them. You could be super smart. You could have communication skills. You could be strong. But if you're comparing yourself to somebody that is like ultra intelligent and your superpower is strength, for instance, you're going to think that you don't have those points in natural selection. And that's the comparative reality. So, but needless to say, when I remind you today that you can expect a miracle, understand what it is that I'm saying and why I say it with confidence. There's a magical process of perceiving and interfacing going on in that wet piece of meat in your skull, and it's in connection with your gut and your heart. Okay. And it carries the lessons from generations of all sorts of species, including humans, the most recent. As long as you can differentiate them from the things that matter most and support the goals and dreams that you've set versus don't, you're fully equipped to make it rain miracles today. Rain all over you miracles today. So I love and appreciate you all. I hope that this makes sense. I got to be honest with you. Sometimes I get really fatigued from this, doing this every day while I'm moving. We're moving to a different country for a little while, and we've just got all of that stuff going on. But I've learned, and that's what I hope to pass on to you, I've learned how to get super excited about all the challenge. Yesterday, I was in a meeting, and we were just going over all of these super tough things that are working potentially sometimes against us. And I made a statement to the whole group that kind of made everybody laugh. And I said, I just got to tell you guys that I am super excited about all this stuff, because from what I've learned, that, the obstacle is the way and everything that we desire sits on the other side of a big pile of poop. If all that is true, and I believe it to be true, man, I'm super excited because we are right on target, right? So love and appreciate you all. I hope you enjoyed this, and I hope that it gives you the ability to see clearer today and maybe get rid of yesterday and stop worrying about tomorrow and just see things as they are and become a reality bender and create the reality that you desire and one that supports you. Love and appreciate you. See you tomorrow at 7:30.